Okay, it is kicking off. It is kicking off. This is a super fascinating updates that have been shared, and yeah, it's a crazy time. So it's really interesting because the news has only really hit the last few days across socials and online. If you're looking for like an official capacity to find out any news about this, it's not really there. Like, I don't think any sort of mainstream. I've not seen any mainstream online blogs post about it, as in like website old school. You would consider online publications. None of the major news outlets, from what I've seen. The first I actually heard about it was saw a clip online um, from the Breakfast Club from Laura. Is it Lauren, the new presenter? I don't really. Breakfast Club fell off a long time ago. I don't watch that much anymore. But I think it's Lauren, one of the new presenters. I say new, one of the presenters that came in after Angela Yee left. And I saw a clip of her talking about major label offices being raided in Turkey. Pending an Spotify-related investigation to do with playlist placements, to do with payola, to do with a bunch of things. And this is the first I kind of heard about it, so we're gonna get into it. Really fascinating story. Excuse me. Really fascinating story. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into it again. There's a lot to break down with this one. This is fascinating. So to kick things off, there have been reports saying that the Turkish offices of Universal Music Group, Sony Music Group, and other major record label offices. The only other majors is Warner, right? There's probably in each territory. There's probably different majors, which aren't the big three, who are considered majors for that particular market. So potentially there's a couple in Turkey which I'm not familiar with. But apparently the offices of Universal, Sony, and other major record labels were raided in Turkey as a result of what they're calling bribery allegations. So let me bring up the tweet here from Lauren. Here we go. Cool. So she tweeted on, let's check the date on this. It was September 2nd. So it's actually earlier this week, man. It was actually earlier this week. I've been busy. I haven't had the chance to catch up on it like this, but we're going to look at it now. So, just spoke to a source who confirmed to me that the offices of Universal, Sony, and other major record labels were recently raided in Turkey as a result of bribery allegations regarding artists on those labels paying off individuals for Spotify playlist placements. All of this has led to an investigation in North America about artists using similar tactics. I'm told the FBI is investigating. So, okay, straight off the bat. We're going to get into it, but is it just me, or like paying for promotion playlists, what is considered payola, which isn't allowed, I believe, by US law, paying to get on radio technically, or whatever it is, because I think it's because it's considered a public airwave. It's been going on for time. That's been going on for time, man. Like that's what they do. I'm gonna get into it. We're gonna break it down, but bro, you pay for promotion, like, so. Let's go a little bit further into this. So Lauren shared the background article to this, so we're gonna open that up, and it's from a platform called Digital Music News, which funnily, interestingly enough, this was posted almost a month ago now, so August 12th. So this has been happening. It's only sort of recently reached our geographies, our sort of news feeds as of late. But this is what's happening so far. So let's go through this article here. So Spotify is facing serious turmoil in Turkey, including allegations of bribery around playlist placement and mounting regulatory pressure. The controversy escalated after several Turkish artists raised complaints questioning how playlists were created and alleging that unfair visibility was being granted to certain performers in exchange for bribes. Okay. So already we're seeing that what may have sparked this is potentially a bunch of artists in Turkey. I'm not familiar with these artists. I'm sure some of them have got, influential following, influential numbers, that sort of thing. And they're basically saying, why are these playlists being created for particular artists? And they're basically alleging that this is unfair because the artists that are being featured are being given visibility and promotion unfairly compared to what we're receiving or other independent or non-independent artists are receiving. So this visibility is being granted to certain performers in exchange for bribes. So this is the key area here. So this is the point where Spotify is technically supposed to be a creator-first, quote-unquote, platform, allegedly, somewhere where independent talent can get discovered and, everyone has a fair chance, I guess. I think that's a whole nother topic to break down. And these artists are basically saying, look, this isn't the case. Like, there's certain artists that are paying, or artists or their artist camps or their teams, are paying and therefore getting an unfair advantage on the platform. Unfair promotion on the platform. So we continue. So these artists publicly asked Spotify to clarify the criteria used to create these playlists for transparency. So they're saying, Spotify, hey, what do we have to do to get on these playlists? Because you're doing it for these other artists, you're creating playlists for these other artists. But what about us? Like, what do we have to do? If we ain't paying you, how are we supposed to be getting these playlists as well? Because your platform's supposed to be all about transparency and being fair and, all that sort of thing. But this don't seem too fair to us, So it's really, really interesting here. In addition to these bribery claims, there are further allegations that artificial bot uploads are distorting chart placements in the country. Wow. Okay. Big up Turkey, man. Big up Turkey, because this has been happening. Let's be real. Like we're gonna get into it, but bot stream farming, whatever you want to call it, is a thing, and we know it's a thing, and it's been a thing for a long time. And it looks like in this particular instance, in this particular market, it's gone to a point where it's beginning to surface very, very seriously. Cool. So this is what's happening. I think the article carries on. Again, I can't really verify this article. I haven't really seen or come across digital music news too much. I've seen it before. I think I might have subscribed to their newsletter a while ago. But, it's not a source I heavily read a lot. But worth noting here as well, so they've put in this article, in direct response, Spotify has launched an internal investigation targeting its editors in Turkey to determine whether their playlist curation was comprised by illicit payments or favoritism. Okay, just a quick point on this. Like, is not the editor's job. So I know a lot of editors. I worked in the major label system. Our job was to send music to editors. As a major label, I think it's widely understood like that major labels automatically have an advantage for a number of different reasons, right? One of those key reasons is the fact that as a label, as a major label, or as a label with some sort of gravity behind you, some sort of influence, you're given an allotted time slot to present your priority acts, priority releases to editors at the DSPs, including Spotify. So, and in that, naturally, an editor's job is to listen to all the different types of music that they're being sent, which is probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of tracks, daily, weekly, and placing them. And so you can't sit there and tell me that there isn't an agenda at work in that process, A to Z. Like, of course there is. There are relationships to manage. There are There are obviously the majors and the big labels, only the ones that only sort of get that allotted time slot, and even those, they can struggle with it. Of course, and then the editors themselves personally, on their own personal level, they're gonna have their preference of artists. They're gonna have their preference of music. They're gonna have their preference of connects and contacts that they have to talk to, and thus push their music, as opposed to the other label guys that they might not really have a relationship with, but they have to talk to because it's in their calendar every month to talk to them. So, I think when it comes to favoritism, I mean, I don't know if favoritism is even... and by the way, this isn't me defending what is allegedly happening here. This is me sort of highlighting the fact that these practices are normal. Like, this is sort of the benchmark of how things work in the music industry when it comes to working with DSPs and pitching. And, this is me telling you how it works. I'm not saying that it's normal for people to take bribes, but it is normal for people to have preferences. That's the whole point of an editor, right? That's the whole point of someone being able to choose what track they think is going to work in a particular playlist, or that they want to get behind, or they want to push, or which story or which data is telling this, and it's up to them individually at the end of the day to make that decision, right? Nonetheless, we continue. The inquiry is looking at charges that independent artists face discrimination. Royalties to Turkish artists are distributed unfairly, and that Spotify has potentially abused its market dominance by disrupting competition. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where you can't defend actions. This is where, at the end of the day, every artist deserves to be paid what they deserve to be paid and what they have earned, quote unquote. I think, again, a whole new... Sorry about that. A whole new topic, a whole sort of different... it's a different conversation. That's something that is very complex when it comes to sort of the revenue, how revenue is distributed between artists and labels and that sort of thing. So that's a whole nother conversation to be had there. So, to continue, Turkish authorities have responded to the allegations, with the Turkish Competition Authority opening a formal investigation on July 4th. That investigation will look into Spotify's market practices, including allegations of playlist bribery, manipulation of royalties, and the unfair advantages granted to certain artists or labels. Now, the reason this is news, right? So, it's the fact that, if we go back to the tweet, the offices of Universal, Sony, and other major record labels were recently raided. So this investigation might have been happening before any sort of physical action was taken. These concerns might have been flagged, or these alleged issues might have been flagged prior to any sort of physical action being taken. But now it's been reported that physical action has been taken, and that's a raid of a record label. When someone says raid, like when you say someone's house is raided, like, I mean, the most recent example is Diddy. But, like, if someone's house is raided, that's serious shit. Like, that's gang. Like, you think... For me, I think, like, when we talk about music business and raided, I think, God rest his soul, Irv Gotti days, like, when the Murder Inc. investigation was happening and, like, their whole offices in New York were raided, like, that's what you think. So, if this is true, if this actually happened, and these major label offices, these are big corporate companies with huge amount of shareholders. This is serious stuff. This isn't your rookie, independent, dodgy fucking distributor down the road, right? This is serious shit. Like, this is big companies with billions of dollars of revenue, right? If their offices are being raided, bro, and there's an FBI investigation, like, this is not something to take lightly. This is a serious thing, right? So, the story is still developing. But there have been reports about it. let's be clear, nothing has been officially claimed, or from what I've seen anyway, nothing has been officially confirmed from either, the labels, Spotify, FBI, any investigating bodies, but the rumors are beginning to circulate. This topic of conversation is becoming a lot louder, and the story is connecting different conversations and different storylines across the industry, and we're going to get into that. And it does bring about the question, if we know these things are still happening, as much as above the board they're supposedly not, or allegedly not supposed to be happening. But if playlists can be bought, playlists are being bought, what does that really mean for independent artists or artists that don't have that leverage, that financial backing to be able to bribe? What does that really mean for them? And if this is as serious as FBI being involved and offices being raided, then how is this going to shape streaming globally? It's a really interesting topic, and there's a lot to dig into. So we're going to carry on. So we've sort of gone through the allegations here. Essentially, there's potential of bribery for playlists. There's people paying their Spotify contacts to make sure that their artists are being placed in particular playlists, right? So there's a little bit more here about the Turkish Competition Authority, and I think there was also mention of there being particular content that, here we go, so Spotify persistently refuses to take necessary steps to, despite all our previous warnings, and ministers stated, content that targets our religious and national values and insults the beliefs of society has not been corrected. Spotify responded to the minister's claims in an official statement, emphasized, okay, here we go, so if this is what Spotify has supposedly said, we're cooperating with the investigation and are actively seeking to understand it, and we will work toward a swift, constructive resolution with the Turkish Competition Authority. All our operations comply with legal requirements. Company representatives have confirmed to multiple outlets that Spotify is actively weighing its options, including a suspension of the service in Turkey or possible withdrawal from the entire Turkish market. So it looks like there might be a little bit of cultural nuance to this story as well. It looks like there might be a bit of unhappiness with regards to the Turkish government being dissatisfied with some of the content which might sort of be contrary to their religious or cultural beliefs or national values, it states there. So that could be also why there might be more of a government involvement here. But we're here to talk about the music industry side of things. So we know that this is happening, right? We know that payola, though it may not exist in its previous form of people actually just literally paying or bribing DJs to play their track on the radio, we're in a different time now. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not happening on the platforms we now consume music on. It does also bring about the idea of playlists. Now, personally, I'm not really that big of a curated playlist user. Like, personally, I don't really rely on. There's only certain like times where I might want to play a playlist that has already been curated by someone else, by an editor or a third party user. So, for instance, like workout music, or if you're driving, there's particular instances. But day to day, I would say personally, this is just me speaking for myself, I don't typically lean too heavily on playlists, like curated playlists. I don't really listen too much to like top 50 UK or whatever it is. Sometimes I'll tap into global top 50 just to see what's going on, but typically speaking, I don't really do that. Like, I think I've mentioned this before, but I very much rely on Spotify's radio feature, so sort of playing similar songs. If I'm listening to a particular artist or particular theme of music and I want to continue with that, that's typically what I'll spend my time doing on Spotify whilst music is playing. So for me, playlisting isn't that big a thing, right? For a lot of people it is. For a lot of people, they rely on curated playlists to consume their music. And so over the years, playlisting has become an increasingly important, it's actually a little bit concerning, because I can speak personally from my time joining the labels. Even up to today, playlisting holds an immense value. Pardon me. And in some cases, it's like, it's the main concern for marketing teams to be able to secure a new Music Friday on Spotify, or, you know, pop playlist on whatever platform, like the flagship playlist for each platform. It's their main concern, and it's also a driver for what they go to other platforms with. So, like, for instance, if you have a new single and it's being playlisted on New Music Friday in the top 10 or 20 spots of that playlist, for instance, you're more than likely, or it's a lot easier to then have conversations with radio teams, with press teams, with PR and press teams, with promotion teams, TV teams, whatever it is. Like, that cosign from the DSPs is very helpful. It's a very important building block for the remainder of your campaign, right? So, and this is like a strategy that can be utilized from the most smallest independent artists ever to the biggest in the world, right? These things matter to a certain extent because it's all about perception to a certain extent. So the importance of landing playlists in this economy, in this ecosystem, is, you know, is you can't value it. Like, it's beyond value. It's invaluable. So obviously the people that hold the keys to these playlists are more than invaluable. Like, these guys, like these playlist editors that can slot your track into the top 10 or top 20 of that playlist, they really hold a really important key. Like, they have big influence. They are able to unlock something for your campaign. I don't necessarily think they could like just a playlist alone could break someone. I don't think that could be like the trigger to turn you into a international superstar overnight. But if you get that spot, and then your team are also creating a campaign that is unfuckable with, like, is really and truly an incredible campaign, and you're hitting all the spots, you're hitting all the right markets, the target audiences, you're hitting all the right promo and all of that stuff, and your numbers are looking good, your organic reach and growth is good, and consumption is strong, then yes, playlisting can really help launch that career, launch that campaign, right? But on its own, I wouldn't say that it can do that, and I think that's a fair assumption. That's a fair evaluation. Another thing to note on playlists as well is, like, if you're in like a New Music Friday on Spotify, for instance, and there's like over 100 tracks in there, like, low key, who's really sitting and listening to 150 tracks on a playlist? Like, if you're slotted at position 120, yeah, like, the perception is great, and I think that's, especially for small independent artists, like, it'd be great for you to just sort of post that and like, yeah, I made it onto New Music Friday, like, yeah, this is it, like, yeah, big up Spotify, blah blah blah. The perception is good and people like it. It's juice, it's perception, it's how it looks. I'd be inclined to take a big interest in how many streams that actually generates for your track. Might be a few, might be 100, probably going to be less. So realistically, like, if you're not landing in these top spots in these key playlists, your position in that playlist is I guess it's almost inadequate to a certain extent. Aside from the perception thing, if you're looking toward consumption and streaming, I don't think it's going to do that much for you. And, you know, like, I don't think that's not to eradicate the value of DSPs in general and playlists in general. Like I said, I think they're a very important source of streaming and consumption. I spent a lot of my career working on that, and I still do. I think it can still be very helpful for artists and campaigns and labels. But it's not the be-all and end-all, right? It's not everything. But because it still matters, and because streams equal money, then it is still important, especially for those top artists, those high tier artists, those tier A artists that depend on, a playlist placement for them equals millions of streams, which equals a lot of revenue, right? Because of that volume of consumption, because of how much people stream and listen to them. So it is important for them. Now, playlisting is one thing, and organic listening is one thing. The other thing is the fake streaming, the fake numbers, the fake bots, right? So it was mentioned in this story as well. It was mentioned with regards to sort of when it came to sort of unfair competition, sort of fake streaming, sort of giving unfair advantage to bigger artists and sort of making the playing field uneven. So that's certainly something to be looking out on. And so I wanted to bring into the video a bit of an interview from Russ. So as you know, Russ, American rapper Russ, very, very, very popular, very outspoken on this topic of, inflated numbers, very sort of could be considered a spokesperson of independence as a musician, as an artist. So he had a really interesting interview, or segment of an interview, I should say, on Andrew Schultz's podcast. I'm not a big fan of Andrew, if I'm honest. I don't really like to shine light on his platform, but what Russ said is really interesting, really important. So I wanted to play a little bit of it for you.
Hey, yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Well, explain it.
I mean, so it's one of those things that like everyone in the industry knows is going on,
which is
faking the streams. It's a real thing.
So the label buys the streams from Spotify?
So here's the deal. When you talk to these people, because I've talked to these people, because I've been like, what is this? How are y'all doing this? They never disclose the mechanics of like how they actually fake the streams. There's like, rumors of like streaming farms, or we're delving out fucking computers in third world countries and hacking the back end to make it look like it's an IP from the US. Yeah. Whatever, like all this nutty shit. But the reality is the labels are spending money.
Just on that point really quickly, yeah. So for those of you people that do know me, I spend a lot of time in Asia, right? And I got a little bit of a story with that. So we went over late last year to Asia, and we were just looking around at like apartments and places to stay and stuff like that. And we went to this one particular building. It was in Vietnam. I won't say the city, but it was in Vietnam. And this guy was like, "Yeah, we're gonna show you an apartment, but we're gonna show you one that it's already occupied, right? There's already people living there. We just want to give you an idea of what the apartments look like in this building, right?" So we go up. I can't remember. It's on a really high floor. It must have been like 17th floor or something like that, right? And we go we knock on the door. The estate agent guy opens the door. From the outside and inside, the occupiers are there. So we walk in, and this I've never seen this before in my life, so this is why I was so fascinated by it. But we walk in, and there's obviously, we're in Vietnam, so there's this Vietnamese couple on the sofa. The guy is like on the sofa smoking. He's got like fucking scar on his face, and he just looks scary and angry at whatever. And the girl's just sat on the sofa, like also just with him, not really looking or saying anything. And on the table and on the floor, bro, there must have been about, I'm not even exaggerating, there must have been about like 200 mobile phones, like literally like 200 iPhones, just like all scattered across the table, on the floor. My man had a couple in his hand. I don't know what he was doing, because we were in and out there very quick. The apartment was horrible. We didn't like it at all. And I was like, when we left, I was like, was that a bot farm? Like, was that where this money is going? Like, is this exactly the sort of thing? I mean, there's probably like much bigger and more sophisticated operations than that what seemed to be like a trap house with a lot of potential phone tracking issues, right? But that's how it felt. Like that's why when Russ said that about, you know, like I don't know. I think it exists. It certainly, you know, it probably, you know, it does exist. He might not have been doing Spotify stream farming, but he was doing something, man. I feel like it was Instagram. I'm pretty sure it looked like Instagram to me on the phones, the screens that I could see. But yeah, anyway, that's another conversation.
And, you know, devil's advocate, they're treating it like a marketing expense. Because in a sense, it like almost is.
You're going to spend $100,000 on billboards. You're going to spend $100,000 on streams.
Right.
Streams is going to put you in a playlist.
You're going to spend real money to get fake streams that equate to real money. So that's why they think it makes sense. Because it's like, okay, the streams are fake, but the money's real. So what do we care? Especially, they're not doing it with like up-and-coming artists who like you wouldn't believe it. You know, they're doing it with people like where it's okay. Let's say your song has 500 million streams, right? Organically, but let's say with fake streams, now you're at 900 million. No one's gonna sit there and be like, this is more like a 500 million stream song.
Yeah.
They're just gonna be like, this is a big song. Makes sense. It has 900 million.
That's honestly so smart.
Yeah, they're not doing it to the dude across the street and giving him a billion streams. They're doing it to people who really can get 500 million. But let's just pump it to get 900.
Now you're getting number one.
Now you get number one.
So you can pay for a number one.
Oh yeah. What
does the number one cost? I mean, that's crazy to even think about that.
I mean,
what does a number one song in America cost?
Look, the reality is this. You do have to have a real fan base to a certain extent. Right? You have to have people who...
Right, so, you know, what we're looking at here is basically the game is rigged. Like, the majors and indies both have been rumored to be juicing numbers with bots, right? And sort of not only to impress, like, I mean, you could say to impress playlists, but, you know, these DSPs aren't silly. They know, they can see the source of streams. They know when things look sus. They know when things look suspect. Bots is basically paying machines to artificially boost your streaming count, or your streaming number, or your consumption of streams, right? It's a separate issue. It's not a separate issue, but it's a separate alleged action compared to playlist payola, which is where playlist gatekeepers are being bribed to artificially they actually do it. They actually put the tracks in the playlist, right? They give them extra exposure unfairly because they've been paid to do it. But the similarity with these two things is that basically both of these strategies distort what's actually real, and not only does it make success feel manufactured, but it makes genuine non-fakey stream artists suffer. Like, it makes the level play the playing field unlevel, right? It becomes disadvantageous for those artists that aren't doing it or can't afford to do it, or independent artists, right? So if playlist slots are being bought, then essentially both sides of the system, like the exposure that you get from bribing gatekeepers to promote your music and the number of streams being botted, then both sides of the system are gained. Like, there's no winning for an independent artist if this is happening, right? Because you can't compete with that. You can't compete with the majors for playlist influence unless you yourself have that influence and that budget to be able to do that, and those connections and those contacts to be able to do this. You're at a disadvantage. And if bots are flooding, if these fake streams are flooding the system, then even organic fan bases can get drowned out by these fake metrics. And so that's why Russ is saying, you know, they're not silly in doing this. Like, they're doing it to artists where you would kind of look at the numbers and they're so big to be able to comprehend anyway that you can't really comprehend, like, the percentages. Like, if a good example is like if you go onto YouTube and a video's got a million views, but it's only got 10 likes. You sort of know, you can sort of figure out just by look. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even look at that, but if you're in the industry, you would look at that and then you sort of say, well, that doesn't really add up. Like, I don't know what percentage that is. It's a very small percentage. It's less than 1%. Million views and 10 likes. You know, it doesn't add up. So you know that there's been some ad spend on that video, right? You know that that's the case. But if you take a song that's got like 200 million streams, 150 million streams, and bear in mind, primarily we're talking about audio streaming here, right? How do you know? Like, as someone that works in the industry day to day on streaming, you might be able to figure out like a baseline benchmark ratio for monthly listeners on Spotify versus amount of streams. Like, you probably have a ratio or a baseline comparison for that. But for most people, these numbers are unfathomable. Like, if an artist has 100 million monthly listeners and then 5 billion streams on a track, then does that make sense or does that not make sense? Like, I don't know. As someone that wouldn't work in the industry, they wouldn't know. Someone that sort of looks at these numbers on a day-to-day basis, you could kind of look at it and be like, that's a little bit suspicious. That doesn't really make sense. So what happens? So this is the interesting part. Because I'll just give you that example, right, of comparing the monthly listeners with the amount of streams on the track. What would actually really happen in that case? Well, this happened. Spotify happened. Spotify, not too long ago, let me find the right tab here, started removing monthly listeners from artist pages. Now, I remember seeing this happen. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a few months ago. So basically, Spotify, we're going to remove monthly listener account from artist profiles. So they've put a few examples here. So normally there was like a little playlist number here with the amount of monthly listeners. It's a bit interesting because I'm pretty sure that you can still see it. I think they might have just moved the position of it, or like it just isn't at the top anymore on certain formats. I feel like I'm pretty sure I saw it earlier today though. So they may have just put it back recently, but so I think they did. If we just look at Spotify real quick. So I mean, we're gonna bring up Kendrick anyway, but yeah. So it's still there for now. But at the time, they started removing it, and there's screenshots here with no monthly listeners whatsoever, right? So, and funnily enough, Russ is all up in the comments here. Russ is all up in the comments here because he knows the sketch, right? So, yeah, at a certain point, Spotify removed the monthly listeners. Now, I don't necessarily think so. This is the interesting part, right? Like, a lot of people, since this story has broken, have related it to what's going on between Drake and Universal and Kendrick. Now, I think it's fair to... I don't know. I think, I mean, the first thing is, if you recall, not too long ago as well, in line with Spotify removing all of these monthly listen accounts, there were huge reports of Spotify cracking down on artificial streaming. And this is actually from their own website, right? So artificial streaming, all you need to know about artificial streaming, it's a problem across the music industry. Artificial stream is a stream that doesn't reflect genuine user listening intent, including any instance of attempting to manipulate streaming services like Spotify by using automated processes like bots or scripts. Right? If left undetected, artificial streams dilute the royalty pool, shifting revenue from legitimate artists to bad actors. They also undermine the fair playing field that streaming represents. Now, this is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. Because it was reported that some of the biggest artists in the world, and obviously the biggest artists in the world most of the time are signed to the biggest labels in the world. Your Universals, your Warner Music Groups, your Sony Musics, etc., etc. There was a bunch of artists who lost monthly listeners overnight. Like millions and millions of monthly listeners overnight, and streams on tracks overnight. Now, I had a little look. I didn't look too deeply, but I couldn't really find any like official reports, like from reputable news outlets on this. But we know it happened. Saw it all over social media. We know it happened, right? Kendrick was one of them. So in the height of the beef, Kendrick had around 115 million monthly listeners. That has now dropped to about 75 million. Okay? Now, I want people to understand and be aware of what the monthly listener count is. From my understanding, the monthly listener count is basically how many people listen to your track or any of your music in the past 30 days. So, or 28 days. I believe that's the correct sort of definition of it. So let's just double check that. So how is Spotify's monthly listener count calculated? So your monthly listeners are your total listeners in the last 28 days, including people who have streamed your music from active and programmed sources. There you go. So it's your total listeners in the last 28 days. So if Kendrick's gone from 115 to pretty much 75 overnight, right? So what's that? That's 40 million he's lost, right? Now, maybe if let's say your track is removed from a playlist, do you lose 40 million monthly listeners overnight? I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I don't think you do. I think that playlisting will have a big impact when you're talking about numbers of those scale. But this is, the point is, I'm bringing it to Kendrick because they're linking it to Drake. But the point is, that amount of fall off, that size of fall off, isn't really explained by falling off sort of a playlist, right? And let's face it, Not Like Us was like the biggest thing, So he won a Grammy for it, right? Excuse me. There's my Uncle Roger cup, by the way, if you ain't seen it. Uncle Roger from Kuala Lumpur. So I think Kendrick lost a bunch of listeners overnight, and so did a lot of big artists. I'm pretty sure SZA was in that list as well. Not to just single out TDE or whatever, but I can't think of the top of my head. And like I said, there was no real official reporting on it. There might have been, I might have missed it. But this is just an example. So essentially what we're saying is Kendrick was fouled to these bots as well. And that's why they call everyone the K-bots. Now, was it Kendrick? Was it his management? Was it the label? This is where the link between the UMG and Drake case comes in, because Drake's whole sort of purpose of the lawsuit is that he's basically commented in past interviews about the industry or the label manipulating and sort of pushing this track to defame Drake. And it's not necessarily about the diss record, as it were. I think there's deeper things that you can look into there, with regards to valuations and renegotiations between Drake and UMG and that sort of thing. But again, that's a different topic. I think what we're really looking at here is the fact that some of the biggest artists in the world have fallen victim to this issue of artificial streaming, this issue of bots and fake streams, and potentially allegedly payola as well. So, Spotify did this whole thing, basically saying how bad it is for the industry and how we can go about fixing and tackling the issue. I mentioned Drake again, and Drake has definitely been vocal about it. He kind of I don't know if you saw the new I call it interview. I feel like it's just a big skit, like with him and Bobby Althoff or whatever the hell her name is. This person. There was an interesting segment in this skit. It's not an interview, by the way. It's not. This is just a full on skit. Like Drake is just trying to bounce off and be funny. I don't think she's very good at it, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think she's very funny. I don't think there's anything about her which I don't understand really. I feel like maybe he's got a vested interest or invested in a platform or something. I don't know what the deal is here. But for a slight second, he did hint at this in this, and the reason I'm bringing this up, this is sort of like the latest thing we've heard from Drake outside of his live streaming and music. This is kind of his only sort of media piece that he's done as of late, right? And so he did allude a little bit to what's going on with regards to streaming and artificial streaming and payola and that sort of thing. So we'll play a little bit of this.
Like what? What's the top 3 conspiracies?
Well, the top conspiracy for why it got removed.
Also, do you not just hate, like, when people do that croaky voice like that? That also, I don't know what to say, but like, I don't like that, bro. I know some people might actually talk like that and big up to yourselves, but it just feels so fake, man. Like, I don't get this. I'm not hating on her. Like, she's built a good platform, probably thanks to Drake. But I just don't understand, man. Like, I get other media personalities that have done this. Like, I think they're not really the same, but Amelia from the UK, I get it. Like, she's actually kind of a bit funny, but this Bobby person is just I just don't get it. But anyway,
from YouTube is that you played Tyga's song and then they removed it. That didn't happen.
That's Sly Fox.
We
don't know, right? We don't know. With the shit that these guys have going on right now.
What
guys?
I
don't know. They're doing this to this song. They're doing that to that song. They're taking songs. They're doing. I don't know.
I don't know anything about
any names. I'm just saying.
Okay.
There's a lot going on in the music industry. God only knows. Tyga might have pulled that plug.
It just happened to line up with the day that
Tyga did a show.
Right. So basically, what he's alluding to is that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of tracks being boosted. There's a lot of artificial streaming. There's bots. Blah blah blah. And this is all named in his like lawsuit and his case and everything that he's been talking to. But the point again here is that if even the biggest artists in the world, right? Drake is like one of the biggest. What is Drake like in the Spotify world? What is Drake's position? He must be top 10, right? He must be top 10. It normally tells you what position in the world he is. Where do I find that? Oh, he said he's 11th, so he's not actually top 10. He's actually 11th. He's actually 11th in the world, but still, right? So we're looking at basically one of the biggest artists in the world. So if he's even questioning the system, what chance does an independent artist have against this machine, against this mammoth of a system? What chance does an independent artist have of breaking organically when all of this stuff is being manipulated, like every day, left and right? So now the reason this is such a big deal is because we're talking about the offices being raided in Turkey, but there's now suggestions of obviously an FBI investigation and an investigation which will now lead into North America. So, obviously leading key music industry market of the world. And if it does happen, if it does get pursued, we're looking at like shining a spotlight on how majors have been handling streaming deals and streaming manipulation, allegedly, globally. Like, this is a global issue. This isn't specific to Turkey. If it does go beyond Turkey, obviously. I think it's also important to note that, you know, labels and streaming platforms are in bed with each other. Like, they have shared ownership. There are mutual interests. But, you know, when it comes to regulation and anti-competitiveness and all that sort of stuff, there are rules and laws that need to be followed. And that was the whole point of the payola issue when it came to radio and airplay and airtime and stuff, right? So this is essentially an evolved version of that. And it's now supposedly led to an investigation, which is big news. But the whole point is, you know, if an office was actually raided, then this is serious business. This is not something that we can take our eyes off. This is something that is going to be very interesting to watch unfold. And, you know, the music industry as a whole is already under a huge amount of scrutiny for its declining growth, its slowing growth. It's potentially in a lot of trouble as it is. There's restructures happening all the time. I just did a video on Warner and what's happening there with their declining revenue. You know, that was specific to the UK market, but it's big drama, big issues. And it also brings the wider question of what is the next iteration of music consumption. Because we've gone from radio airwaves, vinyls, cassette tapes, CDs, MP3 players, Walkmans, whatever, then to downloads, iPod, and now digital and streaming. And it seems as though there's an evolution every sort of cycle into a next sort of iterational format. And it clearly the streaming market is a mess. It's a mess. It's broken. So what is it next? Like, how do we do it next? And the other question is, if this sort of alleged payola 2.0 of, you know, paying for playlist placements is real, and it is happening, and we can say it's allegedly happening. Excuse me, pardon me, but like, do we expect it and allow it? Like who's responsible? Is it labels? Is it Spotify? Have they not built the right formula to stop this happening? Or is it both? Is it artists? Is it managements? I think there's a lot of nuances here, and I think it's a very interesting time. But, you know, at the end of the day, independent artists are the ones that are going to suffer and struggle the most in this situation, because it's already hard enough for you to be seen and heard as an artist, but to then sort of have to compete with this unfair advantage that the majors and big artists have over you, it's not an easy feat, right? I think people have done it. Independent artists have been successful, but if this is really happening on the scale that it's supposedly happening, then it's a big issue. And, you know, if the slots are being bought up, then independents are being squeezed even harder, and there's less and less they can actually do about it, you know. So should playlists be regulated the same way radio once was? Do you think it's even possible for that to be the case in 2025? How do you regulate this stuff when you can't even control what people are doing with streaming and bots, etc.? So there's a lot of questions. And it also brings to question the fact that if you know, the music industry's biggest hits are not even being consumed the amount we think they're being consumed, then do we need to rethink what a hit song is? Like, is it even about the numbers anymore? Do the numbers even matter anymore? Because then a lot of the time they're not even real. Like, they're not even legit numbers. So Like, why are we letting that dictate what is a successful song or not, commercially at least, anyway? Drop your thoughts. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. I think, again, the fact that supposedly these offices have been raided is a huge deal. And if you believe they're real, let me know. If you think they're real, let me know if you think they actually happened. And if so, what should happen next? Is this an investigation that needs to be spread worldwide? Like, will it bring the streaming and music industry to its knees before we have a new iteration of format consumption? What is the answer here? What are the questions here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Appreciate you sticking with me. Any feedback, let me know. If you like the video, please drop it a like and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel and build new stories and break down industry news and industry updates for people to understand and learn more about the industry. That's my mission, to help people grow and learn and understand and share knowledge and, you know, keep growing and keep going. So big up everyone that watched, tuned in. Appreciate the support. Drop a subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll see you on the next one.